to the stage Jim Morse. Or we refer to him affectionately as Uncle Jim. Next, I'd like to introduce Thomas Winterton, ranch manager and superintendent. Next, and finally, I'd like to introduce for all of you, Bryant Dragon Arnold. Have a seat, gentlemen. Can you handle the truth? All right. Some of what we may be discussing here, it may not be appropriate for some of our younger audiences and more sensitive visitors. So with that, why don't we show a little bit of an introduction and then we'll dive in.
The closer that we are getting to the answers, the more covert military activity continues.
What does the military do in flying over Skinwalker Ranch?
Someone's taking an interest in what we're doing.
Somebody sits on the ridge.
Right there!
This is the largest scale experiment that we've ever done so far.
Fire! There's something in the sky!
The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. New season, Tuesday, April 18th to 10 on the History Channel.
The closer that we are getting to the answers, the more.
All right. We just finished season 4, and I don't know how many of you saw our season 4 that just wrapped up. We're very lucky to be the #1 series on the History Channel right now, and actually led cable for a number of weeks. All I cared about was that we beat the Real Housewives for once. And I'm anxious to have our team answer any questions, those burning questions you have about the most scientifically studied paranormal hotspot on the planet. I bought it 7 years ago as a skeptic. Bought it from an elusive billionaire out of Las Vegas who had a partnership with the Pentagon as part of a Pentagon-funded black budget program studying UFOs, bizarre cattle mutilations, poltergeist activity, and other strangeness. This property had developed quite a history. Some say that it is in the path of the Skinwalker and cursed. In fact, the Native American tribes surrounding the property tell their youth not even to look the direction of this 512-acre, very mysterious ranch. Because, why? Things follow people home from time to time. We call it the hitchhiker effect. With that, let's bring up our first question. We'll dive right into it.
Hi, I'm Justice. I'm from Mars. I've seen the work you guys have done on the ranch. It's pretty cool. So what's the scariest thing you've seen on the ranch?
Uncle Jim, why don't you take it? I know what you saw.
Thank you. I've been out there myself for about 7 years. I had the pleasure to be out there when Brandon went out there that morning and purchased the ranch. Reality of it is, I was out there with 2 of our dogs. I'm an ex-military police officer, so I worked canines, and we were out there kind of doing a perimeter check one evening, and I saw these red eyes, about as red as what's in front of me right here. And as I looked at it, it's kind of like me looking at you. It looked away, it looked back, and you know, I've been around animals, and good or bad, this was not from this earth. So it was one of those stares where it stares right through you. Very humbling, put me on notice, and a couple of things have happened to me out there. You know, I drive a Denali, and Homestead too. We found a lot of different energies out there, frequencies out there. And about 5:36, and about ready for me to head back into Salt Lake, and all of a sudden everything just stopped. I don't know what brought that on. The dealership didn't know what it was, some type of electrical function. But there has been, you talk about hitchhikers, I've had that happen to me, you know, where something attaches to that Achilles heel, you know, you got to keep your guard up, your frequency up, and that ranch is known to, like I say, it can hitchhike home with you. So,
Dragon.
Probably Travis Taylor. No, that's right. Sorry. I love Travis. He's one of my dear friends, but if I have poor hearing, it's because he's really loud too. So, come on, Dragon, let's go.
And he doesn't shut up, does he?
Right.
No, we love it. We say that in the most Christ-like way.
You know, honestly, as much as I would like to talk about it, but it happened this summer while we were filming season 5, coming next spring. Let me put it this way. We were lucky to come out without either major injury or death after what happened. So, as much as I'd like to talk about it, just stay tuned. Sorry, but by far the scariest thing I've seen, other than Travis working out.
Has he ever told you that he does CrossFit?
Only about 8 times a day.
Yeah. Thomas.
Well, I'm with Dragon. Probably the scariest thing I've witnessed. We're not at liberty to talk about yet, but I will share. It wasn't something that I saw, but it was something I experienced. And this was early on in the early days, right after Brandon purchased the ranch. I was actually out there plowing snow. And you have to understand, when I came on the ranch, I thought most of the stories were BS, and I was very skeptical. And it was late. It was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was in a piece of equipment called a skid steer. It had a snowplow on it, and I was out there plowing the road. We just got a deep snowstorm, and so it took several passes back and forth to get the snow all the way off the road. And I was headed from Homestead 1, plowing the road across over to Homestead 3, and I came off the culvert into an area that we know as the Triangle today. Now back then I had no idea that there was anything special about this area, but as I came off the road down into the Triangle, my machine's very loud, the snow plows make a lot of noise. I had earbuds in listening to an audiobook. You could have been standing 2 feet away from me and I wouldn't have been able to hear you, even if you were yelling. And as I rolled into the Triangle, I heard a very clear, audible voice tell me to stop, don't go any further. And since I had to make several passes, I didn't think anything of it. I turned around and started plowing the snow back to the command center. And as I turned around and come back on my 3rd pass, you know, I'm thinking about what I just heard, and I thought, oh, it's all in your head, you're making this up. And so when I got to that spot, I kept going. And I only went probably another 150 to 200 feet, which, interestingly enough, filming this last summer, in the exact spot that this happened, something else happened. So I'll be excited for it to show on television and be able to share further. But I got to this spot about another 200 feet, and all of a sudden I started to have a terrifying, the best way I could describe it is like a neurological effect. My muscles started to mound up, seize, and I started to shake so bad I could barely control the machine. And I immediately turned around and I made my escape in that slow machine off the ranch. And I got home and I continued to shake uncontrollably for about 12 hours. But it was the most terrifying feeling I've ever felt in my life. I felt like something was going to eat me. I don't know how to explain it other than some type of energy really caused a serious effect with me.
Go ahead. Oh yes, he's a dear friend. Oh, love Cole Kelly. Coach Kelly. He's a bad egg. Yeah, let's go to the next question.
So this is for all of you. First off, me and my grandpa are a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
Last time you were
Thanks,
here,
Grandpa.
Last time you were here, I asked if you believed in Bigfoot, but this time I'm asking, what's the strangest thing, in your opinion, that you've seen so far on the ranch?
I'll take that quick because it happened 7 years ago about this time of year. It was October 14th of 2016. I was a skeptic. I'd never seen a UFO, a ghost, an orb, anything of the sort. Was still pretty skeptical. And on that day, everything went crazy. My cell phone drained from 80% to zero within a matter of seconds. We saw a gentleman, a big security guard that ended up being rendered catatonic, who ended up in the hospital, by the way, for weeks after. But most importantly, as we were traveling across the ranch to return to Homestead 1, right up ahead of us, hovering right above the mesa, appeared a 40, 50 foot long flying saucer. And it was clear as day, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, grayish silver. In fact, you could see the sun kind of glinting off of one side. It proceeded to dart to the left. In a split second, it changed position. We all were shocked. All of us who were sitting there in shock were witnessing this. Then it dropped within a few seconds with the same precision, instantaneously changing position. Then it darted to the right, and then within a few seconds later, it was gone like a bullet. We all sat there after that 20-second episode, and we were all changed. In that moment, I went from being a skeptic to not just a believer, but an experiencer. I can't unsee that which I saw that day. It was undeniable. And it happened simultaneous with equipment malfunction, battery drainage, even people having acute medical episodes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John, and I've watched the show since its beginning, follow it faithfully every season. And what I'm curious about, I'm sure that you are familiar, but I know Travis Taylor probably is, with the golden ratio of 1.6. And I know that that's a common frequency that we see broadcast over and over and over. And so my question has to do with the spiral of the rocks at the top of the mesa. And if that happens to follow that same ratio as it expands.
The megalithic site. So there's a place out there with these old stones arranged, interestingly, in a circle, in a spiral. Anything to add? Anything you want to mention relative to the 1.6 gigahertz frequency and correspondence?
Well, to your question, I can just tell you that I know that Eric and Travis have had a lot of discussion, and that very, the golden ratio and that. I know we've sat around the table there in the command center, and they've had a lot of discussion regarding that. Now, it was all in scientific terms that I can't even begin to repeat, so all I can tell you is yes, they've discussed it quite a bit.
There's something very unusual and significant about that, and more importantly, the timing associated with that signal showing up, because that signal seems to show up and correspond with unidentified aerial phenomena, equipment malfunction, also people ending up in the hospital. Any of you were paying attention when we were drilling into the mesa some time ago, we had that frequency show up, and over at Homestead 2, Tom Lewis ended up literally going to his knees, having a cardiac episode, and Dragon had to literally run him to the emergency room off the property. Something strange and very troubling attends those episodes.
Well, I was just going to say too, it's good to note that we know there are a lot of things that broadcast at that 1.6. It's really close to the range of the satellites broadcast at. So it's not that we're seeing signals at 1.6, it's the behavior of the signal, and it's also the direction and the origin of the signal that has been very baffling. You know, if it's a satellite, you'd expect to be able to track it in a very, explainable way, whereas we're seeing signals that are originating 5,000 feet above the ground and instantly going from broadcasting in the north to the east, over to the west. Something's got to be broadcasting, so it's the behavior of the signal that's really strange.
Next question. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm Linda. We would really like Dr. Taylor to show up here. So if you guys come next year, we show up with 24 various sizes of rockets. We might get him here.
And let them off in here.
Yeah. Hey, you said his magic word, rocket. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times this summer, Brandon, let's launch a rocket. And we did, a lot.
Hopefully Dr. Taylor will be here next year. He just finished literally living at the ranch for the last almost 4 months with research experiments and some of the most aggressive activity ever conducted and documented relative to these topics. So thanks, we'll let him know. We'll let him know you're pissed that he's not here. Is that okay?
We literally wrapped last night, season 5, and so he was eager to get home and see his family.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Yeah, hey, my name is James. I'm from the Lost River Legends podcast. It's not very big, but a burning question that myself and my co-host have for you guys is, have you looked into Stephen Greer's CE5 methodology for contact?
I'm familiar with Stephen Greer, of course. He's a figure within the community associated with these topics. We have not conducted a formal study relative to his approach out there. And he has not visited the ranch, nor has he been invited to the ranch. Do I believe that consciousness plays a role relative to what we're seeing? Yes. Consciousness plays a role. Whatever we are experiencing, whatever entities we are interacting with, have the ability to instantaneously read our minds, size us up, and even suggest certain things at times, both disturbing and otherwise. But thank you. Next question.
From last season, the big finale, you launched a really big rocket and you lost it. Did you guys ever find it?
Nope. Still don't know where that rocket is. It's possibly in some other world or realm's living room, and they're really upset. So, between that and a bunch of bottles we dropped out of a helicopter a couple years ago and some big black medicine balls, they're wondering where in the hell is all this stuff coming from.
It's in the upside down. It's a good question. One other thing, I don't know if any of you remember the instrumented weather balloon that we sent up. I think in season 1. Never recovered. Not only did it start manifesting a signal at 5,000 feet, but it disappeared at 5,000 feet, and we've never been able to recover it. No one can account for its whereabouts. Pretty disturbing. Thanks for your question. Great costume, gentlemen.
Thank you. So we all know that Brandon, this is my first time being in cosplay. So we all know Brandon's the nerd, but for the rest of you guys, and question for Brandon too, what is your favorite piece of pop culture?
I would say Brandon Fugal's Office. Basically, he's got a lot of good stuff. Favorite piece of pop culture? Gosh.
While he's thinking, I would say my most recent acquisition, the Poltergeist clown, the evil clown that strangled Robbie from Poltergeist 1982. The only problem is, the person who occupies the office next to me had to have our office blessed the other day and saged for some reason. Also, no kidding, I was sitting about 2 a.m., it was about 2 weeks ago, typing a proposal. I'm the only one left in the building, of course. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw some movement. I look over and the clown just slumped down. Nothing, no one was in the building. The air conditioning hadn't turned on. It was really weird. So I put a big sheet over it. Sorry.
I would, if I had to put it, I'm working on getting a replica of Doc Holliday's ivory pistol from Tombstone, because that's my favorite movie. I'll be over there.
This is so outside my realm. These guys talk pop culture all the time, and I'm the outsider just kind of observes, because I've just never been into that kind of stuff. But I have to say that the Bible that you got
Shawshank Redemption. Any of you familiar with the rock hammer? The Bible that was the instrument of Andy Dufresne's escape?
Yeah, I love that show, and when he got that Bible, I mean, that was really cool. So, I'll just say that's mine, but I'm...
Thanks, Thomas. Jim?
I'm going to pass on that.
The other thing, maybe the Highlander sword. The sword from the Highlander. There could be only one. The one wielded by both the late Sean Connery as Ramirez and Connor McLeod, played by Christopher Lambert. It's all beat to heck. It's the one that beheaded the Kurgan, and I love it. It has a cherished place. Next question.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm actually your second cousin, Brandon.
Oh, welcome, cousin. You dress just like him.
Letting my imagination run wild, one of my favorite theories is the extraterrestrials have actually captured and experimenting on the skinwalkers. That's why during the filming, we haven't seen evidence of them showing up versus the stories of the past, and we've seen pictures. What are your guys' theories on why we haven't seen just ultimately blatant evidence of either skinwalkers or extraterrestrials instead of UAPs?
That's a good question. We don't know the origin of the UFOs or the unidentified aerial phenomena. We don't know where they're coming from, whether it be other worlds, other dimensions. And as for the Skinwalker, I think Jim probably saw the closest thing. I mean, his account, which he wasn't alone, he had a witness with him as well as the dogs, was the closest thing that we've experienced. But we've been using the scientific method. We've been very strict about using science and technology to document the reality of the phenomena. And there are aspects associated with the history that are a bit elusive. I'm not saying they're not real. It's just a different category, a different nature. Good question. Next question. Thanks, cousin.
My name is Steven, and how has Skinwalker Ranch changed your life?
Take your reality that you've been programmed with for 40 plus years, we'll leave it at that, and put that in your brain and then put it in a blender and put it back in again. Now, honestly, you go into something like this with, I think I went in as a healthy skeptic because I've never experienced anything. But as Brandon has said before, I went from a skeptic to a believer to an experiencer. There is absolutely, without a doubt, especially given what we experienced this past summer, that there is absolutely much more to this universe than we are taught or know about, and we're hoping that we get even more answers. I promise you, my mind is scrambled eggs at this point.
And we want to show you what we experience. We're not going to hide anything. We are stewards.
Yes, stay tuned. Everyone loves that answer.
Then your brains can be scrambled like ours.
It's changed all of our lives. It's turned them upside down. In good and bad ways. Good question. Next.
Hi, my name is Samantha. Me and my dad really like watching your show. We even made a bingo card. It's like, do they mention the 1.6 gigahertz? Are they
boy,
gonna shoot
that would be
off a
filled up in a hurry. Like a G-rated drinking game version of what? Yeah.
Anyways, I have a very, very serious question for you guys. Who among you do you think is the funniest?
I'm that angry guy that just scowls all the time on TV. Don't give away my secrets.
It's pretty accurate.
It's Dragon, and it's not even close.
I don't know. You'd be surprised. Eric is hilarious.
Eric Bard. Oh my gosh. Whoa, he is clever. He's like Zorro, though. He'll cut you in a million pieces in about 30 seconds, and you don't even realize how much he just insulted you.
He does it in words you don't understand, too. Or he switches to Russian because he's fluent in that, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah. Dragon calls it the angry elf. Good question. Next question.
Hi, I really enjoy your show and the scientific approach that you take to things, and you're not getting out there, you know, super crazy. You're really trying to keep it in line. But the one question I do have is, Brandon, so you own the property, right?
Yep, 100%. No investors, no one else.
Right.
The government's not involved.
And so, like, when we're sitting on our couch watching you, or watching the show, it's like, why doesn't he just dig into the Mesa and knock it down and find out what's in there? So,
You know what, that's actually a really question that we've had this debate about. It's not a matter of not wanting to get into the Mesa, but you have to realize that given the things we've seen in that Mesa and potentially pulled out of that Mesa with that very exotic metallic material and things like that, the last thing we want to do is potentially destroy something that could be world-changing. Also, that Mesa is ridiculously unstable. It's probably, if Thomas said it best the other day, if you were going to hide something in a spot on the ranch that you didn't want someone to get to, it would be on that Mesa. It's like a big Jenga game of those boulders up there. So not only do we not want to destroy what's potentially in there, it's extremely dangerous, and we want to take more of a surgical approach to see if we can figure out or get a picture of it and best understand the best way to get to it. So just stay tuned, we're working on things, but we're not just gonna go throw dynamite on there and blow it up just to see what was inside.
Yeah. We don't know. It's whatever it is, it's unusual, it's exotic, and it warrants a very, very careful approach. But those boulders, just to sum up what Dragon was saying, some of those are bigger than a bus or a car, and one wrong move and that can come down on the team production. We've had some close calls, but we're gonna get to the truth, and we're not gonna destroy it. If there's a Stargate, a flying saucer, or something exotic in there that is behind what is happening above and below that ranch, we're gonna do our best to preserve it and understand it and reveal it. Thank you. Next question.
Has anything from the ranch followed you guys home?
Yes. Many times.
No, I'm lucky. Knock on wood, nothing.
I'd say yes.
I haven't, but my wife, before she was my wife, had something follow her the first night that she went out to the ranch and returned home. And it was really unusual. It woke them all up in the middle of the night. So the hitchhiker effect is real, but I've been lucky. I haven't had anything follow me home yet.
I've called it demonic.
Thank heavens. Thanks for your question. Okay, next.
Hi, my name's Will. With all the rockets and all the craziness you guys do over there, do you get any complaints from the neighbors?
Yes.
Plenty.
I've had very unpleasant phone calls before. Matter of fact, season 4, one of the exercises, I had a phone call from the neighbor. It says, "Do you have to fly that helicopter at night?" And asked us to not do that anymore. We're not very good neighbors.
This is frontier science. There's a greater purpose behind this. Next question.
So I've never heard of the Skinwalker Ranch before until yesterday, but I found it really fascinating. My question is, if there are rumors about things going on in the Appalachian Mountains, like skinwalkers, a whole bunch of paranormal stuff like that, that there are certain local codes to follow to where you can sort of be in that area and mildly be safe, if that makes sense. Like, you're not supposed to say your name out loud, don't stare directly into the woods, don't whistle, don't do anything that'll call it to you. Do you guys have any procedures or anything like that that you do to keep yourself safe?
We pray. Honestly, before we enter the airspace or even the ranch on ground. We tell people that regardless of their religious belief system or their background, they need to prepare themselves. They need to enter with the spirit of humility and reverence. For what we are interacting with and experiencing, it's beyond any explanation, and it can be negative. People who have entered the ranch with a very adversarial attitude have ended up in the hospital. Anything to add?
Honestly, we've seen it humble a lot of people. I mean, and he'll say it himself, but Dr. Taylor, when we first met him and talked about what was happening on Skinwalker Ranch, his quote to us was, "It's just a place. It's not anything, there's nothing on that ranch that I can't explain away with science. I think y'all are batshit crazy." And literally within the first few months of being there, he was terrified with nightmares every night. He was hit with a dose of radiation out of nowhere. It has completely turned to the point where he is 100% believer in the fact that you have to tread lightly on that property.
It's a mindset. Before I approach the ranch, I take a second just to premeditate where I'm at, what I'm doing, and I do not go in there dropping my guard. When I have the frequencies down, it's kind of like being on a bad double date. It's when I'm very conscientious, very cautious when I go to the ranch.
Well, I was just going to say, it's being on the ranch for 7 years, you get a feel for the ebb and flow of it. And, most of the time that ranch is very serene and peaceful and nice, but it does turn and you can feel it. And I've ignored those warnings. I shared a story, earlier about a time that I ignored it and I paid a price. So I've just learned when I start to feel that feeling, I just remove myself. I get off the ranch.
Good question.
Next.
Hi, so my question is, earlier in the time that you've been uncovering this story, the ranch was described as having a personality. Has the personality shifted in any major form that you have noticed, or has it stayed the same over the years?
Have you ever seen that show Split?
No.
It's about a guy who has like 30 different personalities, and it can go from friendly, benevolent, to evil, malevolent, and threatening in a split second. The number of personalities or entities that we are dealing with, it's difficult to put a finger on, other than we can safely say, based on the data, that it's a diversity that we're interacting with. It isn't just one type. And it's a number of different personalities. We don't know what we're going to get from 1 hour to the next.
I've gone on the ranch with what they call now spiritual leaders as opposed to medicine men, and they're very observant. Their perception, or they're almost like empaths, and they'll say, "Do you feel that, Jim?" And it's like the watchers, like somebody's watching you. So again, we're very conscientious about our surroundings.
To your question as to whether it's changed, I remember the discussion when we first were getting prepared to film season 1, and that was, what happens if we turn the cameras on and nothing happens? The ranch doesn't tap dance on command. And we were thinking, well, that'll have to be part of the story.
Yeah, we told History Channel that. We said, I went 6 months. I'm the owner, and I went 6 months before I saw anything unusual.
I went 4 years.
Yeah.
So there was some concern there as to what if we turn this on and nothing happens. I will say to your question if it's changed. I don't know if it's changed, but we've been, I guess, fortunate in the fact that every year that we've gone out there and filmed, it almost feels as if things have escalated. Because, or maybe it's just that our methods of monitoring it have escalated, so we're catching more of it, and it's been there the whole time. I'm not sure which it is, but we've been fortunate that each year we've been able to capture more and more data and witness more and more things. So I don't know if that's a change, but there has been an escalation in the amount and increase in the amount of things that we've witnessed.
Good
question. Next.
My name is Justin. The truth, we want it, it's a great thing. But also you're running a TV show which has a different goal of trying to perpetually inch towards the truth. But if it ever gets there, the show ends. So what safeguards or discussions do you have internally to make sure you don't have a conflict of interest?
Good question. I had no interest in either revealing my identity as the owner of this bloody place or having cameras or a television series. It took over a year. I mean, Jim, you remember, you were bugging the crap out of me for a year. Every week for a year, producers of the History Channel reached out to try to get an audience, and I finally, just to shut them up, I said, okay, I'll give you an audience. When we sat down and met for the first time, I said, look, we're not going to even do anything unless we have a binding contract that states that you cannot fake or manipulate, fabricate, contrive anything. If you come out and film, it is raw. It is the real deal. It's the actual events as they unfold. That was important. It wasn't just important to me, but important to all of us, because we wanted this effort to have integrity. We've all seen enough ghost hunter shows with people tripping over themselves in the dark with night vision goggles. I wanted nothing to do with that. No offense to those entertaining shows, but we wanted this to be real because we've seen it with our eyes. We know it to be real. We wanted integrity with that as well.
You know, this is one thing where the scientists, we all knew, even when the show started, you know, it'll start, there will be an end to it at some point. Everything has an ending. And we've been fortunate that we just filmed 5 seasons, but at the end of the day, our scientists are saying, you know, we may have to go get another job after this, and if our credibility is shot to hell, how are we going to be able to feed our families? And one of the safeguards is, you know, we've got this contract, and I have to say, our production company, we work with the top individuals. I mean, they're like family, and I have the utmost respect for every single individual that works on our production team. But you're right, they are in the industry of entertainment, and sometimes science is anything but entertaining. It can be like watching paint dry. And so sometimes there is conflict there, and I will say that there's been some times where things have come to a halt, tempers are raised, and we just flat out said, if you're going to go that direction, we're out. We'll get in the car and we'll leave. And that always brings them back to the table, and we move forward. So we won't compromise our integrity, because after this, we've got to be able to go feed our families, and if we're a bunch of clowns, that's going to be hard to do.
The scientific effort was going on for years before we allowed television cameras in. The command center wasn't built for a docuseries. It was built to satisfy my curiosity and to learn, to understand what we're dealing with. It'll continue even after. We are not really dependent upon a television docuseries. It's just, it's an interesting tug of war. But I will say, to have dozens of the finest documentary film professionals all brought together on this property for 4 months every year, that are miking everyone up, drones in the air, recording everything as it unfolds. We're talking, there's never been an effort like this in the history of the world, to be able to document real time a frontier science investigation and allow the public to have a peek behind the curtain. It's pretty cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Next question.
The biggest compliment that I get is, man, that dragon guy, he's a terrible actor. Thank you. This is not an act.
Yeah, that show's so poorly written. It's not scripted. There's a reason why we're still filming. There is no script. No one has put anything in front of us. None of us have been on TV before other than Travis.
My name is Shemaine. I just have an idea of a triangle. Have you guys ever thought of putting cameras around the triangle when you're doing your experiments to see if anything comes out?
Oh yes. Yes, many cameras.
We've added high-speed the most advanced high-speed cameras ever. I think we have time. One more question or so. Fire away.
All right, my name is Haley. I've been watching with my best friend for a few years now.
I was curious to know what brought all of you to the ranch, and if there's anything that ever really just kept you drawn there.
Good question. Well, I brought people I trusted after I purchased it. Jim, I've worked with since I was 18 years old. He was the first office building developer that took a chance on me, jumping in the commercial real estate business. Dragon was my mission companion when we were serving a mission for the Mormon Church in Hawaii.
30-something years ago.
Yeah, so we've known each other since 17, and within weeks of acquiring the property, Thomas Winterton was engaged to handle all the facilities and troubleshoot for us. So this really is like a family, and it's a diverse family. We're not just a team of scientists. We bring a multidisciplinary group of people together, kind of like the A-Team from the 80s. A very unlikely group of people that some way, somehow, synergistically work together, and I think that's why we're getting results, because we're doing things unconventionally, and we're taking a different approach. I think that's why we're getting the answers. And at the end of the day, and I'll close on this comment, we're not in control. To be really candid with everyone here, we don't have control over that environment. It's in control. And we can only hope to be worthy and hopefully receptive and present to be able to understand the mysteries that'll be revealed to us in the weeks to come. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Get ready.